Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Internet filter. First, we'll log in as an administrator. Remember that this feature is only available to administrators. Next, go to the menu on the left and select the Internet filter option. On the page that opens, we first see the type of control. There we have the option to apply to all. In this case, web filtering and bandwidth filtering, if enabled, will be applied to all users, without any distinction by profile. We recommend this option because it is simpler and quicker to set up. To demonstrate this example, there is another specific video that shows you step-by-step how to do this. We also have the option of making the control type by profile. In this case, when activating this mode, we need to make sure that we also define the browser's proxy settings, inserting the automatic proxy script as shown, and we will also need to authenticate ourselves whenever we access the Internet, and these filters will be applied to users according to their profile. In this video, we'll cover this option in detail, going through the configuration step by step. So, let's go. Click on this Apply by Profile option. Then simply click on the Save button, and an alert will be sent that the filters have been successfully saved. The type of control here, in our case, will be applied by profile. Next, we'll copy the address that is highlighted on the screen. Then, we'll open a new tab in the web browser we're using and click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner of the screen, as indicated. Then click on the Settings option. A new tab will automatically open, as you can see. There, in the menu section on the left, select the System option, and now choose the option Open the computer's proxy settings. This screen will open, and here we'll go to the Use the installation script option. There, we will click on the Configure button, as indicated on the screen. Once this is done, as you can see, a box will appear in the center of the screen. Here we go to the button below the Use installation script option to activate the configuration script. Below, in the script address field, we will enter the address we copied, which was described in your C3 microcloud. We will therefore enter this address and click on the Save button. This will complete the proxy configuration. However, if you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, the configuration is done in the same way, but so that you don't have any doubts, we'll show you step by step. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, select the three dots, and then choose the Settings option. A new tab will open. In the menu on the left, choose the System and Performance option. Next, click on the option Open your computer's proxy settings. On the next screen, go to the Use installation script option and click on the Configure button. Likewise, a box will appear in the center of the screen. In it, we'll activate the button and enter the script address, as it was indicated in our C3 microcloud. We'll paste this address here into this field, click the Save button, and the configuration is done. This means that every time the user opens the browser, they will be asked to log in. In this login, we will enter the same credentials we use to access the C3 microcloud, so it will handle it by profile. Here I'm going to enter the administrator credentials and log in. Okay, let's go back to C3, return to the Internet filter option, and continue making the settings. Remember that, in this video, we are dealing with the configuration applied by profile, and in this case, we must configure the proxy we have just seen. As you can see on the screen now, we're going to go through the whole web filtering configuration. This option will be enabled by default and should be kept that way, because if we disable it, as we can see on the screen now, we won't be able to configure our list, whether it's a permissive list or a restrictive list. By leaving this option enabled, I'll be able to choose the type of list I'm going to configure, whether it's a restrictive list or a permissive list. Let's understand each of them. The restrictive list means that all sites will be accessible to the user, except those included in the list of restricted domains. But if you select the permissive list option, it means that all sites will be blocked, except for those included in the permissive list. Here's a point to note. There are some sites on the domain list that can request other resources from other domains. These are sites that have banners or advertisements which, when you click on them, take you to other domains. In this case, if you are setting up your whitelist, this type of site should be included in your whitelist, as should all the other domains that site calls. In other words, when you click on a particular banner or ad, you will be directed to another domain. This other domain must also be included in your list. We'll start our example with the restrictive list. Since we're configuring this by profile, we'll start with the administrator profile. After selecting the profile, we will click on the Manage the List of Domains button. We will then click on the Add Domains button as shown on the screen, and here we will include the domains to be blocked. A word of caution. As indicated on the screen, we can enter several domains at once, as long as each URL is on one line. Another point to note is that if the user, in this case the administrator, enters a URL incorrectly, it will automatically be ignored. So, as an example, we're going to enter two domains, youtube.com and instagram.com. Another point to note here is that when the administrator enters the domains, they must be in exactly the following format: domain name plus .com, and so on. The formats HTTP, HTTPS, or www before the domain name are not necessary. If you enter any of them, an error will occur. We'll now do an example to show you this. Once the domains have been entered, click on the Create button and then click on the Save button. A warning will appear that the list of domains has been saved successfully. We're going to open a tab in our browser to carry out this test, first inserting one of the domains we entered in that list, youtube.com. Notice that access was denied, and the other domain that was on our list, instagram.com, is also denied access. Now, let's do another example. We accessed a website that was not included in our restrictive list. In this case, it's news.google.com. We're going to copy this address. Then we'll go back to the list of domains to be added. However, here we're deliberately going to insert the protocol https news.google.com. In other words, here we've deliberately mistakenly inserted the HTTPS protocol before the domain name so that we can see what's going to happen. We're going to click on the Create button and then on the Save button. You will notice that an error alert has been issued because we have entered the name of this domain incorrectly. In this case, we should click on the box next to the domain name. When you select it, the trash icon will automatically appear so that you can click on it and delete the domain you entered. Once we've deleted the incorrect domain, we'll click on the Add button again to insert it correctly, i.e. in this case, news.google.com. Next, we'll click on the Create button and then click on the Save button. Now we have the warning that this domain has been successfully saved. Let's test it out by opening a tab in our browser and entering this domain, which has now become part of my restrictive list. Notice that access has now been denied. We're now going to make another type of restrictive list configuration for another profile. This time, we'll choose the student profile as an example. In the same way, we'll click on the Domain List Management button and then click on the Add Domains button. Now we're going to test the Import Sites button. One point to note here, when clicking on this button, we must indicate where on the device this list is located. This list must be in TXT format. After selecting the file to be imported, click on the Open button. This way, the imported file will automatically become part of the list of domains. It is important to note that if there are any incorrect domains in the TXT format that we are asking you to import into C3, they will be ignored. Therefore, only those domains that have been entered correctly will be included in this list of domains. After importing the list, we will click on the Create button and then the Save button. We will then be notified that the list of domains has been successfully saved. To carry out this test, as I'm logged in as an administrator, I'll log out and then log in as a student to walk this trail as if I were one. Note that I am now logged in as a student. Now we will open a new tab in the browser. This will automatically prompt the user to log in. The same credentials used to access C3 must be entered here. Therefore, we will log in to try to access a website. Note that Facebook.com is one of the sites on the students' restrictive list, so you won't be able to access it. We will now log out of the student profile and log in as the administrator profile in order to continue going through the Internet filter settings. If I choose the option to block all domains, as indicated on the screen, it means that for the student profile, which is the profile selected in this case, all domains, whatever they may be, will be restricted and therefore cannot be accessed. Next, click on the Save button and you'll be notified that the Internet filters have been successfully saved. The configuration we have just made blocks access to any and all websites for the profile you are selecting. In our case, it's the student profile. Let's do this test by logging out as an administrator and logging in as a student. Now, as shown on the screen, we are logged in as a student. Next, we'll open a new tab in our browser. The user will be asked to enter their credentials, the same ones we entered to access C3. We'll log in and notice that we're now trying to access a site that wasn't included in that list of domains that were on the restrictive list. As we have now changed the configuration so that any and all domains are blocked, no matter what domains the user wants to access, they will be blocked. Now, let's log out as a student and log back in as an administrator to continue scrolling through the options. Now, we go to the whitelist. Let's change the profile. We'll now choose the teacher profile to configure the whitelist. We could choose any other profile. What we're doing here is just an example. Remember that the whitelist means that all sites will be blocked, except for those sites that have been included in the whitelist. We will then click on the Manage Domain List button. The procedure for adding these domains to the whitelist is the same as before. What changes is the function of each of these lists. Just a reminder, we are now configuring the whitelist for the teacher profile. Let's click on the Add Domains button and enter the domains we want to allow access to. Next, click on the Create button and then on the Save button. A warning will appear that the list has been saved successfully. Now let's click on the Save button, and again, we'll get a warning that the Internet filters have been saved successfully. As we have set up this permission for the teacher profile, I am going to log out as an administrator and log in as a teacher in order to demonstrate this example as if I were one. Then, after logging in to C3 Microcloud as a teacher, we will open a new browser tab. you will be asked to log in. Here we will enter the same credentials used to access C3, in this case as a teacher. Note that google.com is a permissive domain. Access is therefore permitted. Next, we will log out as a teacher and log in as an administrator to continue going through the options contained in the Internet filter. We will now click on the Allow All Domains button as indicated on the screen. Note that this example is being carried out to apply to the administrator profile, but it could be any profile. Activating the Allow All Domains option means that the administrator, the profile used in our example, will have unlimited access to any domains. Next, click on the Save button. A warning will appear that the Internet filters have been successfully saved. Scrolling down a bit, we have the bandwidth filter. In this case, we will enable it. By default, it is disabled. But if we enable this bandwidth filter, it means that we will be restricting the bandwidth that the user can browse. Just to point out that this setting can also be differentiated by profile. In other words, you can configure different bandwidths for each profile. Here, we will select the administrator profile and restrict the bandwidth to 2 megabytes. Next, click on the Save button. A warning will appear that the settings have been saved successfully. Now let's do a test to see if we can verify this. We'll open a new browser tab and access a website that measures internet speed. And you can see that it shows that we are browsing at 1.6 megabytes, i.e. within the allowed limit, which has just been configured, of up to 2 megabytes.
Critical Links thanks you for your attention.